How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish, and this is the Sunday Show, where I tell you what's on my mind and answer a few of your questions. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. This should be fun. So before we start this video, I just want to let you know that all the proceeds from the shirts that I sell on my Teespring store, link in the description below, all those proceeds will go to the hurricane relief efforts. Maria and Irma and Harvey, they really hit hard, not only in the US, but in the Caribbean as well. So all the proceeds from my shirts will go directly to those efforts. Puerto Rico is having a really tough time right now, and some other Caribbean islands aren't faring any better. So they need some help, and maybe you can get a cool shirt as well. So check that out in the link below. So I've seen some videos going around on the topic of buying exotic cars and potentially flipping exotic cars and owning exotic cars for basically the price of Civics or just something more pedestrian like a Toyota Camry. You see these on Facebook posts by like exotic car hacks and stuff like that. Like, you can own a Lamborghini Huracan for, let's say, $600 a month, and no, this is not a scam or whatever. Here's the problem that I have with that, and that it never does an apples to oranges comparison. Now, it's true that you could probably get a $600 payment if you factor a lot of other things in, and by the time you factor all those other things in, it doesn't really make sense to have that $600 payment as the only metric that matters. So here's what I'm talking about for those of you who don't know. So there's a company called Exotic Car Hacks, and they're also affiliated with Secret Entourage. And full disclosure, I actually wrote an article of Secret Entourage a while back, and this was just about depreciated cars that you can buy for a good amount of money. So that's my affiliation with them. I don't have any other affiliation with them other than that. But what I've seen as far as their YouTube channel and website and Facebook page is that they tend to tell people that they can basically get something for nothing, which is what a lot of companies do. It's like you can get a Ferrari or a Maserati or Lamborghini or something for really, really cheap. And what they don't tell you on the outset is that you likely need to get yourself into a lot of debt on something that is a depreciating asset. And if you don't buy 100% right, then you are pretty much screwed as far as a repair is concerned. So let's say you buy a Lamborghini Gallardo and you buy it right. You buy it for under market value. And there are some Lamborghinis that are in that price range, especially for, let's say, a Gallardo that's an early year, maybe an E-Gear, something that's not as desirable, but it still is desirable. Let's say you buy it for 70 or 80 grand. But what a lot of people don't do is they don't factor in the price of repairs. Not even stuff like the clutch, which you can tell if it's going out, and you know how much mileage a clutch can get on those cars, which is actually pretty low. But let's say something else breaks. Let's say something unforeseen happens. Let's say one of the timing gears goes out, or just something catastrophic to the engine that you won't be able to fix, and it's not accounted for in your regular maintenance. That is a big problem, especially if you're paying for the car monthly, if you finance this car, and if you're overextended your financing like a lot of people that likely sign up to these sorts of services, then it's not going to be a good experience for you. Now, the only remedy for this is research. The secrets to buying exotic cars, well, here's the secret. There is no secret. There are no secrets to buying exotic cars as far as I know. I mean, I don't have a exotic car fleet, but I do know a lot of people with exotic cars, and I do have cars that might be considered kind of sort of exotic. But I buy cars all the time, and I've never gotten into a situation where I'm in serious financial trouble from these cars. And I think that when you're overextending yourself to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, that could be a real issue, especially if you're like, oh, well, I'm only going to buy this Audi R8 and then drive it for 6 months, sell it for more, and then essentially I'll be getting paid to drive this car. Like, while the end goal is you'll get paid to drive this car, in the middle of it, you're still paying a lot of money. You're paying whatever that cost is whether it's retail or wholesale or whatever, and you're incurring that interest. And you're also taking a lot of risk because, again, these cars are inherently more risky than something like a Honda Accord where you can get parts anywhere and the parts aren't as expensive. But if there are no secrets to buying exotic cars, then how do these businesses make money? Well, the businesses, what they do is essentially tell you how to buy a car, how to haggle, how to look for a car, which is good advice. But I don't know if I would charge money for that just because it's something anybody can do. Google is your friend in this instance, and if you want to buy a car, all you have to do is go to a forum. All you have to do is go to just Google that car with issues and look up YouTube videos and look up common repairs, that sort of stuff, and that's the best research that you can do because after all, this is a lot of money that you're spending on a car. Let's say if you do want to buy, a GTR or a Lamborghini or something, then you're investing a lot of money into that car, and it's not going to make sense for you to want to have that research done for you, but rather you be the arbiter of the research, be the arbiter of the information that you take in. The only hack I can advise you on is basically haggling, and haggling it's all a leverage game. If you have the leverage, if there's a car that has been sitting on a lot for quite a long time, and you know that the car is priced a little bit higher than the other cars in the marketplace, then you can use that to your advantage. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it depends on how good you are at negotiating and how good you are at laying your case out. Sometimes, sometimes you do get a substantial amount off on a car, but sometimes you basically pay what the retail price is if it's a car in high demand. So obviously it's good for you to learn skills that allow you to get money off on stuff, but sometimes it's just not possible. So these deals are very, very buyer and seller specific. Now, I don't mean to be picking on this website in particular. I know that the people running it are pretty good people, and they're not ripping anybody off, and they're just providing a service that is of value to somebody. But I personally wouldn't use it, and I think that it's sort of a waste of time just because you can do the research yourself. The thing is, if you give the same amount of time that you would dedicate to watching these seminars, like there's multiple hour seminars and there's group chats and all that stuff, to doing your own research, then you'd be better prepared to buy and potentially sell an exotic car down the line. Now, I would personally advise against doing something high risk like selling an exotic car, like buying a car with the intent to sell later on, because a lot of people don't know where the market's going to go. There's a lot of variation in the market, and specific cars can go up in value, specific cars can go down. Most of them go down, and a lot of times the buyers for these cars, they're few and far between, and they're very, very fickle. So if a car has some imperfections, that might diminish the value a lot. I know Ferrari owners are like this. But it's really not something that I would advise. If you're buying a car, I would do it as a toy. I would do it for you to enjoy. And if you want to sell it on later, then just know that you'll probably lose money on it. But that's okay. That's the way these things go. But before you go and buy an exotic car of your own, I wouldn't go on these websites and pay money to get information that you can basically Google for free. I think I've been rambling for a little while, so I think it's time to get to questions. All right, our first question comes to us from Chris Clark on Twitter, and he says, "Is there any mechanic you would trust to work on your car? I haven't found one." I don't think there's really any mechanic I would trust to work on my car unless they came recommended for somebody else. But honestly, it's been years since I actually took my car to a mechanic, and the last car I took to a mechanic was a 540 I had, and the mechanic screwed it up so badly that they ended up grenading the head. It had a timing chain job done, and they were not well equipped to do that kind of work. So I got a really lowball offer from them, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it makes sense to do it with them since they did some work for my parents' cars and whatnot. So I took my 540 over there, gave them a wide berth on the time frame. I gave them basically a month to do it. And the car came back running on 7 cylinders, and the timing was screwed up, and there was RTV everywhere, and it was just a complete nightmare. So that kind of got me off of giving work to shops. At least cheap shops. I'm sure that there are competent shops that can do that, but I didn't have that kind of money. So what I do have is time, and that is why I work on my own cars. So yeah, I really haven't found a trustworthy mechanic. I'm sure they're out there. 100% they're out there. You can go do your research yourself, but I like working on my own cars myself. Our next question comes to us from Steph Schrader of Jalopnik. She says, status of Porsche. I'm guessing that is Porsche or Porsche. So my Porsche 944 Turbo is just sitting on the side of my house, and that is where it's going to stay until around spring of 2018, which is when I'm going to start the restoration. I have a lot of projects, or some very key, very exciting projects from now until then. So I'm going to unveil that soon, and I'm going to finish my projects that have been unfinished, like the S500 and some other ones. So yeah, so look forward to that. But the Porsche is still on my in my driveway, and it's on the docket. And maybe I'll get another Porsche. I've never actually owned a 911. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Next question from Twitter is from Ellie KQ. Ellie says, do you think you'll end up like those car collectors with hundreds of cars rusting in your backyard? So here's the problem I have with that. The difference between essentially hoarding and collecting is presentation. So Jay Leno has 200 cars. The thing is, they're taken care of. They're in an air-conditioned garage in California, and he drives them every day. The problem is, if you put that collection, that same eclectic collection, in some field in Virginia and have the elements take a toll on them, that's a hoard. So I'm not really, I mean, I wouldn't have them rusting in my backyard. At some point, I'd have a garage built, or just rent out a garage or something like that, like Tyler Hoover did on Hoovie's garage. But yeah, I wouldn't have them rusting in my backyard. But I would like to have hundreds of cars. I have that gene. I have that collector / hoarder gene, and I'm keeping it under control. I hope, at least that's what I tell my wife. But right now, if I buy a car, I do my best to get rid of another car. So I want to keep it at around 7 or 8 cars, you know, as it stands now, just because I don't like having a lot of them outside. I can't fit 3 cars in my garage, but I'd like to build a garage where I can hold all my cars so they don't have to be out in the elements, and I can have a little bit of that presentation that Jay Leno has. Our next question comes to us from Facebook. That is by Salvatore Joseph Picataggio Jr. I hope I'm saying that name right. He says, I-4, bad highway or worst highway? So I-4, for those of you who don't live in Florida, and that's probably going to be 99% of you, I-4 is one of the worst highways in the country. It's actually, look it up, it's actually the deadliest highway in America. So it's the deadliest highway by accidents and people just driving like crazy. And also in Florida, there's a lot of, they call them snowbirds, people that live up north, but then when it gets cold up there, when it gets snowy, they come down to Florida, and they're usually older, they're usually elderly, and they don't really bring too many driving skills with them. So add that to the fact that I-4 is always getting construction, and the sun takes a toll on it. There's trucks that go by, tourists near Orlando. It's a real crap show. But for me, it's not horrible. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so New Jersey and New York, that was pretty bad. Just because you're going 5 miles an hour and it takes you basically an hour to go 5 miles, which is what 5 miles an hour mean. But it really takes a toll on you when you can see the entrance of the Holland Tunnel and you're trying to get back to New Jersey from New York, but you haven't moved in 15 minutes. Yeah, I think that is probably worse just as an experience for me. But I haven't had an accident on I-4, knock on wood, but I mean, it is pretty bad, so I would avoid it. And also, Florida has some very good county roads, some back roads, so I would take that instead of I-4, even though I-4 would save you a little bit of time. But please be careful. Next question on Facebook comes to us from Mike Medvisky. Medvisky? I probably should know how to pronounce that. He says, I have a 2004 Jeep 4.0 with 145,000 miles that overheated recently. I've put 400 miles on it since without issue. Do you think it was just a fluke that the thermostat didn't open? So the 4.0 Jeep, that's most likely an XJ, and that's the later model XJs, which do have overheating problems. I know that it was quite common, so I would check that the head gasket isn't blown. So there's a test you can buy on Amazon or eBay or whatever. It's like a blue liquid that you put on the cap of your radiator, and then you start the engine, and the blue liquid is there's supposed to be bubbles that come up, and if the liquid changes color, then that means that you have a blown head gasket, because it has like some kind of it traps the molecules from the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide or something from the exhaust, if the exhaust makes it into your coolant passages. But that's the only thing I would be concerned about. Honestly, I don't think it's a fluke that the thermostat didn't open. If it is, then a thermostat is pretty easy to change, and it's also very cheap to change. It's like, 10 or 15 bucks. So I would do that first. I would make sure that the thermostat is new, and I would make sure that there isn't any sludge in the coolant. There's not any blockage in the coolant, because there could be something in the heater core. There could be something that got loose, but it still is an issue. So maybe I would flush the coolant just to be safe. And if you've been driving it for 400 miles since without any issue, I'm not sure what part of the country you're in, but it has been getting a little cooler. So maybe it's a problem that only presents itself when it's really hot. So I would make sure that your cooling system is just working as intended. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. I wouldn't just I wouldn't discount it just off the bat. Our last question is from Corey Wanko on Facebook. He says, "What's the status of the SL tranny swap? I saw an update a few weeks ago, but I've been looking forward to it for so long." Corey, I've been looking forward to it for so long as well. Now, the status of the swap is that I have the trans ordered, but that's going to come at the end of November. So before then, I'm going to do a lot of stuff that gets the car ready for that swap. So right now I'm going to be doing suspension, I'm going to be doing some power adders, and I'm also going to be doing the pedals and making a pedal box for that car to make sure that it has 3 pedals when that tranny goes in. But that definitely should be done by the end of the year, and I'm really looking forward to that. But no, it hasn't gone by the wayside, and that is definitely full steam ahead on that build. So that is it. I hope you guys liked this Sunday show, and if anything I said rub you the wrong way, then let me know about it. You can reach me at The Real Tavarish. That is Instagram and Twitter. Facebook.com/AskTavarish is my Facebook, and AskTavarish@gmail.com is my email. So I'm pretty easy to find. You can also find me on Wheelwell. I think I'm wearing a Wheelwell shirt right now. Yeah, you can DM me there, and I'll be sure to get back to you pretty quickly. So until next time, this is me telling you that it was a great conversation with you guys, and I'll see you next time.